Good morning everybody. Today we're going to have a look at this book called Ice Race, and this is going to finish off our topic about the polar climate. If you look really carefully at the front cover of this book, you will see that on there are some dogs, some sled dogs that are pulling a very heavy sled behind them on some snow and ice. And this book is all about them. As you can see, it's called Ice Race. But I want you to have a think, looking at the front cover of this book. Do you think it's going to be a fiction book or a non-fiction book? Have a think. Yes, you're right. It's a non-fiction book. And one of the clues that tell us whether a book's fiction or non-fiction is that the front cover often has a photograph on the front cover rather than a drawing or an animation. So straight away we see the photograph and we think, perhaps this is a non-fiction book. That means that it's got facts and information inside it. Can you see the title? It's called Ice Race. And the writer of the book, his name is at the bottom here, Sean Callery. But it's not a story. Before we start looking inside the book, I want to have a look at those words in the title with you. Can you see the word ice here? We have got a split digraph I and then a curlicle in the middle, which in this case we call a soft C because it makes that sound like a S. So we've got ice, split digraph I, ice. And in this word we've got R, split digraph A, and a soft C again. S. So we've got R, A, S. Two words with a soft C. Ice race. I'd like you to stop the video now and have a think and see if you can come up with a list of other words that have a soft C. See how many you can think of. We're going to come back to that tomorrow. Let's have a look inside our book. As I said, on the front cover we've got a photograph rather than a drawing. So that gives us a clue that this is a non-fiction book. There's another clue just inside this book. Let's have a look. There's the heading again, Ice Race. And again. And then we have this page, which says at the top, contents. Non-fiction books usually have a contents page at the beginning. And then down here, there's a long list of all the different things that you can find out about in this non-fiction book. From snow hooks to checking the ropes. And down here on the right hand side we've got numbers starting from 6 and going down to 31. So these are the page numbers of the book, and down here the subjects. So what you can do with a non-fiction book is you can choose a topic that you'd like to find out more about. Perhaps, for instance, let's see, if you wanted to find out about the ropes, you could look, check the ropes, and go to page 12 and find out what you wanted to know about check the ropes. It's not like a fiction book where you have to read the story beginning, middle, end. In a non-fiction book, you can dip in anywhere if you want to find out about a particular subject. So the contents page is really useful. Let's have a look what comes next. Again, we've got a photograph rather than a drawing. And it tells us here, husky dogs work as a team to pull sleds across the ice and snow of Alaska. The ice race takes place in Alaska. Needed for the race. spare boots for each dog, food, drink, sleeping bag, cooker, snowshoes, axe. And we've got drawings of all those different things to help us know what to take with us. I wonder who these things are for. Does a sled dog need a sleeping bag? Food will be needed for the dogs and for the human, the musher. What about snowshoes for the musher? That's the human pulling, driving the sled, or the dogs. What do you think? Interesting. The hard, cold ice can damage the dog's paws, so they wear little boots. There's the answer. And you can see in this picture, they've all got special little boots to protect their feet. The dogs are tied to the sled so that they can pull it. And here we've got some labels. This is another feature of a non-fiction book. Labelled drawings. So we've got harness here on this dog and a tow line connecting the dogs together. Each musher pulls his sled to the start line. Sleds set off every 2 minutes. So they don't all set off at once. Every 2 minutes the next one goes. And here we've got another label for this drawing, plastic runners. So these are the runners made out of plastic. Sleds travel at about 32 kilometres an hour or 20 miles per hour. That's pretty fast. The sled slides across the snow and ice on plastic runners. I wonder why they make them out of plastic. And here they are. Gosh, it looks cold. The Arctic is not all flat. The musher must get off and push the sled up steep hills. So when they get to a big hill like this, the musher helps by getting off and pushing. Doesn't just leave it all to the dog team. Now, this is where we find out why this book is called The Ice Race. The Iditarod, that's an interesting word. The Iditarod is a famous dog sled race. Teams race more than 1,600 kilometres or 1,000 miles across Alaska. The fastest sleds finish in 8 days. So they race for 8 days. This is a map that shows the part of North America where the race happens. It's called Alaska. And if you look at this line here, it says Arctic Circle. So this part of Alaska is actually in the Arctic Circle. The part below that line is not, but it's still extremely cold in the winter. This says Anchorage, which is a very big city in Alaska, and that's where the race starts. And up here it says Nome, and that's where the race finishes. This dotted line here shows you the route that the sleds take, so they go along here. But when they get to this point, it varies from year to year. So if the year is an odd number, the race goes on the southern route and goes around this way and carries on to Nome. And if the year is an even number, the race goes this way up the northern route and goes along and finishes in Nome. Have a think. 2021. Is this year's race going to take the southern route or the northern route? Have a think about that. It says here, the route is not always the same. Here are some of the words mushers call. Hike, get moving. Whoa, stop. Easy, slow down. G, turn right. And haw, turn left. Very simple commands so that the dogs can hear what the musher's telling them to do. Can you imagine going through that cold ice and snow for 8 days? I wonder why they did that. Let's find out. The musher slows the dogs down and throws out the snow hook. Here's the snow hook. A photograph to show you what it looks like. It grips in the snow and pulls the sled to stop it. So it's like a brake that they can put on. The first finisher wins money. The last sled to cross the finish line gets a red lantern. This prize is to show that they kept trying to the end. So it's a special prize for people and teams that kept going even though they were struggling. That's great. Now, this is interesting. The Iditarod race is in memory of a great rescue in 1925. So that's almost 100 years ago. The children in the town of Nome, where the race finishes, were very sick. Their medicine came by dog sled. So, in order to save the children who were very poorly, the dog sleds had to deliver the medicine. Why do you think the medicine had to be delivered by dog sled? Why couldn't it be taken by car or aeroplane or boat? I wonder if you could think about that, or maybe even find out. Now we come to the back of the book, and this is another feature of a non-fiction book here. It's called the glossary. And a glossary is a list of words that you will find in this book that might be words you've never heard of before, words that are to do with the subject, topic words. So there's things like musher that you might never have heard of before, the person driving a dog sled. So a glossary is often found at the back of a non-fiction book. Look at the words though. What order are they in? I wonder if you can see. Starting with Arctic and finishing with snowshoes. Are they in a particular order? And we've got a list here of websites that you could have a look at to find out more information about the ice race if you wanted to. Not all non-fiction books have this, but it is a useful addition in this book. And then down at the bottom here, we've got the index. The index is a little bit like the contents page. It's got a list of words, and then after the words, the page numbers. And the index tells you which pages to look at to find out information about these particular subjects. So why can't you just look at the contents page for that, I wonder? Well, look at the order that the words are in. Starting with Alaska, again at the top, finishing with team, alphabetical order. Makes it easier for you to find what you're looking for. Some words, such as lantern, only appear on one page, so you would look at page 27 to find out about lantern. But if you wanted to find out about sleds, look at all these pages you would have to look at. Interesting. Okay, so what I would like you to do now is to make a list of the different features that I've talked about that you might find in a non-fiction book. What things tell you that it's a non-fiction book and not a storybook? Can you remember the things that I said? Then I'd like you to have a look in your house and see if you can find a non-fiction book in your house. Have a look and see if you can see any of the properties of a non-fiction book that I've mentioned in your non-fiction book. Okay. I wonder if you noticed when I read this book to you today that I only read you the right-hand page. There's a reason for that. The left-hand page is a little bit different, and I'm going to show you that tomorrow. Okay. See you then. Bye for now.